The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Golenbock University. And Peter's here, Ralph's here, and Al Blumpkin, Sabre Superstar, is here. First, let's start with Al, because he just got back from the Sabre convention. We talked about it on the show you and I did, but tell Peter what it was all about to be in Pittsburgh in the summertime.
Okay, every year Sabre has a national convention in different places. After a 3-year absence, I was able to go to the one here in New York last year, and when they announced that this one was going to be in Pittsburgh, my old stomping grounds from 50-odd years ago, when I went to college at the University of Pittsburgh, I had to go. So I was lucky. I got a ride back and forth from two guys who I'm familiar with, who are now part of the top trivia players, which I was years ago. And so I went there and I met some people that I'm on Facebook with. And generally I couldn't go to the ball game because of my limitations, which they lost in 13 innings anyway. But I had a very, very good time, and I was very, very glad I was able to do it.
And what were some of the topics they spoke about?
Okay, they had 4 panels. Well, first of all, let me tell you about one of the presentations I didn't go to. Dave Smith, who was the founder of Retro Sheet, was doing a presentation on why games are too long these days.
Uh-huh.
Now, anybody who watched 1 or 2 games this year knows why. And so the panels, one was on Clemente, one was on the 79 Pirates, where they had Grant Jackson and John Candelaria as guests.
Nice.
One was on the Branch Rickey, and Dick Grote, unfortunately, who I interviewed 33 years ago, couldn't make it, so they got the original Frank Thomas in his place.
Yep.
And they had somebody from the Library of Congress who was in charge of manuscripts, and he said they have 20,000 pieces from Branch Rickey, to and from Branch Rickey, that they read some excerpts from. One of the ones they read an excerpt from was Rickey talking about Frank Thomas when they signed him originally. Said he could do everything. And when they read that to Frank Thomas, he was not very happy and said, yeah, that didn't translate into dollars.
No.
Back then.
He did not like paying very much money to these people.
Yeah, and Lee Lowenfish, who wrote a huge biography on Branch Rickey a couple of years ago, was the moderator. So I think I asked him after that panel, what did you think, how you think Branch Rickey or George Weiss would act today? He said they wouldn't.
What do you mean by that?
That basically because how Branch Rickey or George Weiss, who were interested in squeezing every penny out of ball players, would act the way the game is run today.
Well, once Marvin Miller got rid of the reserve clause,
yeah, I know, yeah,
these people would not have been able to do what
exactly,
they did.
Yeah. So he said they wouldn't, and I said that's the exact response I figured on.
Yeah.
And they had a 4th panel of broadcasters, and one of the people they had on that panel who does the Pirate games was Steve Blass.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and
that's like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, he's very, very funny, very, very entertaining, and he seems to have handled the sudden meltdown he had in his career very, very well.
Sure,
sort of like our buddy Mark Littell on these podcasts. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, sometimes infamous is better than famous in a way.
Yeah.
Well, not better, but if you can't have it, and you're not shooting a cop or anything, you can become infamous. Bucky Dent.
Well, the one basically who stands out, of course, was Monty Moore. Blew himself away after, because he could never get over that blowing that playoff game for the Red Sox.
Monty Moore was the announcer with the A's.
Donnie Moore.
Donnie Moore. I'm talking about Donnie Moore, a relief pitcher, blew the...
Donnie Moore.
the fifth game of that series to the Red Sox.
Gave up the home run to Henderson, and then
and then they went to Boston to play 6 and 7. They basically were a bunch of dead bodies, and they were crubbing both games up there.
That was 86.
86, yeah.
That was 86.
Year that was. Those playoffs were not only Boston was in it, but Houston was very with Scott that year and Roger Craig in that splitter, and that brings us to great segue, I might add, to what I plan to talk about tonight. Thank you, Al. That was terrific.
Thank you.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the splitter was the last dramatic change in pitching, in the way things were done pitching-wise. That made a big difference. And I wanted to talk about the next dramatic change in the way of rotations and the way things are set up. Peter, that's your Tampa Ray team that is going through a metamorphosis. First, congratulations. You're 0 for 500.
Beat the Astros 3 out of 4.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. I have never seen, I've been watching baseball since 1954, and I have never seen a change in a ball club the way I've seen a change in the 2018 Tampa Bay Rays. I have been on cloud 9 for the last 2 weeks. I have seen games that are magical, absolutely magical. I mean, nobody knows about the Tampa Bay Rays because they started so poorly. But right now, the Tampa Bay Rays are literally as good as any other team in the American League. We're approximately 10 games behind the Seattle Mariners. But do not be surprised when October rolls around to see the Rays in the playoffs.
Well, Peter, I got home late Sunday afternoon last week, and I put on the TV just in time to see the Yankee relief pitcher, Chasen Shreve, who every Yankee fan thought was terrible before this. I saw him throw the one pitch that was given up to for the home run in the 12th inning last week.
Against the Rays.
I saw the game on TV Saturday.
Yes, against Bowers. Bowers hit the thing too.
Yeah, and I saw the game on TV Saturday because the Pirates are getting clobbered. I found the Yankee and Tampa game on the day of the week when they were using all the relief pitchers, and they shut the Yankees out 4-0.
I tell you what, I sit in that trop watching these games literally for 3 hours with my mouth open. I mean, we started this year, and I was sure that this was going to be a team that was going to lose 120 games. We started out 1-8, and we looked so terrible it was unbelievable. And then they started switching people around. They started bringing in the young kids. This kid Bowers, who is spectacular. Jake Bowers, who's wonderful. This guy Willie Adames, who is really terrific. Daniel Robertson, Joey Wendell. They start bringing these kids in. Malak Smith, who's being used more than ever, along with Kiermaier, Carlos Gomez, who's a sort of an interesting veteran, C.J. Crone, another interesting veteran, and the best of them all, a guy by the name of Wilson Ramos, who has been a Washington catcher for the last God knows how many years, 7, I think. But yes, last year he came to the Rays. He was injured, and this year he's playing uninjured for the first time. He's going to be the most valuable, not the most valuable player. He's going to be the all-star player. He's going to be the all-star catcher for the American League, for the Rays. I'll tell you what, we played 10 games against the Yankees, the Washington Senators, and the Houston Astros.
I do that a lot also. Don't
we were
feel embarrassed.
9-1. We finished 9-1. 9 wins, 1 loss. I think the Astros in 4 games scored 5 runs. It was stunning. I mean, stunning. I'm telling you, I'm going to name the Rays pitchers, and I know damn well the people listening to this broadcast have never heard of any of them.
Snell. Blake Snell.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
You know
Snell's
Blake
terrific.
Snell. He's 111. You know Blake Snell, and you know Archer, who's on the DL. Those are the two guys you know. I'm going to name you 8 guys you've never heard of. Jose Alvarado, Matt Andriese, Diego Castillo, Nathan Eovaldi, Vidal Nuno. Vidal Nuno? Who the hell is Vidal Nuno?
He was a Yankee reject. And Eovaldi was on the Yankees for a while. Yeah.
Chazro, Ryan Stanek. Whoever heard of Ryan Stanek? Ryan Yarborough, who's got 7 wins. And our new closer by the name of Sergio Romo.
He was on the Giants, I believe.
Holy smokes. Yeah. In the last 2 weeks, these guys' ERA is about 2.2. 2.2. In the last 2 weeks, the Rays staff has had the lowest earned run average in the majors, and you people don't even know who they are.
Yeah, I saw that statistics. That statistic on Quick Pitch this morning.
It's astounding. I mean, astounding.
Is it translating into attendance?
The attendance tonight we had 19,000. Yesterday we had 18,000, and I guarantee you, as this team continues along its way, we play very few teams in the next half of the season that have winning records. Very, very few. And as this team starts to steamroll towards the playoffs, the crowds will grow.
Well, you know how the A's mirror the way the Rays have been going over the years.
Yep, I sure do.
Coming into the weekend, the A's had an 8-2 road trip. They won 6 in a row, something like that. They come back to the Coliseum, and I say that with quotes. It's a absolute dump.
Stop it. Stop it. It's a Major League ballpark. Stop calling it a dump.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but however, 14,000 fans, and Oakland is a big market team. It's designated as a small market team to get funding through Major League Baseball, but that's not because of the market. That's because of the stadium they play in. And you downplay that, Peter, but in today's
I downplay that. If they played in a Little League stadium, you're watching Major League Baseball, why wouldn't you go? Why wouldn't you go? Who cares where they're playing?
I feel exactly the same way.
Don't get it. I just don't get it at all. But if
you're drawing to today's crowd, look at Arlington, Texas.
Look. The people who live in Oakland have never gone to the ballpark in Arlington. The people who live in Miami have never gone to the ballpark in San Francisco. Who cares what the other ballparks look like? You got Major League ball in your hometown. You go.
Well, there's a stomach boycott in Pittsburgh because fans are fed up with the management and they're still PO'd about them trading McCutchen and Cole in the off season.
Yeah, but they're playing very well, aren't they?
No, they're not. They're now, because they beat San Diego today, they're 3 games under. They were 26-17, and they were breaking, and then they just played about 250 ball for the next stretch, and they win one and they lose one. But the team in that division that's really turned itself around is Cincinnati.
Yes, it has.
They were terrible the first month and a half, and
they brought up
now they're beating everybody.
And Pittsburgh's got a young kid too who's been spectacular too. The young kids, the thing that we're discovering now
is the young kids.
Everybody throws 95 to 100 miles an hour, and I mean everybody. Is that when you're now 33 and 34 and 35 years old, that would be like 20 years old if you were 39, 40, and 41 years old. It turns out that the guys today who are 33 and 34 and 35 can't play anymore because these young kids are so talented that these older guys, and by older, 33, 34, and 35, they can't catch up to the pitching.
That's the big thing with the Mets is they don't have any young kids.
That's the problem with the Mets. That's the problem with a bunch of teams. That's why when the Tampa Bay Rays brought up all these 22-year-old kids, all of a sudden they started winning because those are the people who win games. When the Yankees brought up Gleyber Torres, when they brought up their young third baseman, Andujar, These are the guys who end up winning games for you. You got to
because
have
they're
young
caring, and they're not jaded yet.
That's part of it too.
Yeah.
But also, they're young. They don't get injured. They're just in better shape than the guys who were 33, 34, and 35.
And there's a very high percentage, growing percentage of Latins coming into the league in other countries, China, Japan, and what have you. And I think that's an infusion that's well appreciated.
Well,
I don't know if
sure.
you guys know it, but today is Bobby Bonilla Day.
All right, you want to explain this?
Yeah, Bobby Bonilla until 2035.
Bobby Bonilla Day. Bobby Bonilla gets paid $9 million
That's
a year.
$1,200,000 from the Mets every July 1st until 2035.
Yes, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
There are actually a handful of players who get paid.
I know. Strawberry also is getting a ton of money until 2035 because they signed him his last contract with them was a deferred, deferred payment.
Well, they deserve it.
Oh, sure.
Well,
yeah.
they deserve it. It's interesting.
That probably helped him along the way because at that time money was going to be an issue, and give him credit for turning his life around. I'll ask you, Peter, any word on how Doc is doing?
I saw Doc about a month ago.
Really?
And there's no way for me to know how Doc is doing, but I was with him, and he seemed amiable and seemed, as youthful looking as Doc has always looked. He seemed fine. It was the Ted Williams Museum, which is housed in the Trop in St. Petersburg. Every year has its annual gathering. We gathered at the Bright House Park in Clearwater about a month or so ago. Doc was there, and he looked great. So I'm
nice.
hopeful. I'm hopeful that he's doing fine. I mean, people do not understand that drug addiction is an illness. It is a terrible, terrible illness that is not that easy to shake for some people. And Doc has had a terrible time of it. I knew Doc when he was at his peak. He lived in St. Petersburg. He had $1 million house. He had a beautiful wife. He had 2 lovely kids. His kid went to Canterbury School, where my son went at the time. And then his problems with cocaine started to build, and Doc lost literally everything that he had. From what I understand, there was a point where he was living under a bridge. I mean, it was just so sad. But from what I understand, he's gotten the help that he's needed, and he's hopefully back on the right track.
Good. That would be a feel-good story if ever there was one.
Peter and Ralph, what do you guys think about this 6 reliever games now? I know besides Tampa, the Dodgers did this against the Pirates about 2 weeks ago, and they shut the Pirates out. I think part of the reason is that a lot of teams can't find decent fit starters.
Well,
and the way they use some of these pitchers for 1/3 of an inning or 1 inning, that they can send them out a couple of days in a row.
Let me explain what the Tampa Bay Rays are doing right now.
Okay.
It is stunning. I mean, I'm telling you, they're 9-1 against the Yankees, against Washington, against Houston. I mean, when we started at 10 games, we would have been happy to have won 3 and lost 7. Believe me, that's how good these teams are. And in most of these games, we either shut them out or gave them 1 or 2 runs. And this was a bunch of players, as I said, people you've never, ever heard of. But the philosophy is this, and we've seen this before. The idea is that when a pitcher faces the other team the first time, usually the batting average is about 200. When that pitcher faces the batter the second time, the batter then hits closer to 300. And when the pitcher faces the batter a third time, the batting average of that batter is closer to 350 to 400. So the philosophy from the Rays is, what can we do to keep our starting pitcher from facing that batter a third time? And so this is what they're doing. They're taking people like Ryan Stanek, who can throw the ball 100 miles an hour, and they're starting him. And he'll pitch 2 innings, so in other words, he'll get rid of the first 6 batters. And now they'll bring in the second guy, and that's been quite often Ryan Yarborough. Again, somebody you never heard of. And Yarborough will go from the third inning to, say, the seventh inning, usually pitching very, very well, which then leaves the Rays 2 more innings. And then they've been using people like Diego Castillo, you've never heard of, who can throw 100 miles an hour in the eighth. And then bringing in Sergio Romo, who makes me cringe every time he goes out there. But most of the time, he gets the people out and gets the save. Sergio now has 8 saves. I think he's had 5 in the last 2 weeks, and it's been amazing. And so they have 2 starters. One is Chris Archer, who's on the DL. Another is Blake Snell, who's got 11 wins. A third one is Nathan Eovaldi, who used to be a Yankee, and who throws the ball 95 to 100 miles an hour. But after that, again, they start people like Stanek, people like Matt Andrees, and they pitch 2. And so the next pitcher doesn't have to face the batters 3 times. People like Yarborough, people like Austin Pruitt, people like Matt Andrees will then go and pitch from the 3rd to the 7th. And you go there and you watch these players, these pitchers from the Rays, almost always shut the other team out. And it's been stunning. I mean, stunning. We beat Washington in one game 11-0.
Man, I know that was last week, yeah.
I just can't say enough about these people. You've never heard of Chaz Rowe. Chad Rowe comes in and pitches the 7th and the 8th and shuts them out.
Any relation to
between 95 and 100.
So
no relation
you have
to
help at the back end of the bullpen, even though you're using your best relievers sometimes at the start of the game.
Yeah. So you're basically using 4 guys. It's 4 guys.
Most teams don't have five decent starters on their team.
We've got 2. Right now we've got 2.
I know but the Yankees have this guy, Sonny Gray, who maybe one out of every 3 games he'll pitch decently. He started the Red Sox game last night, gave grand slam homer in the 1st inning. I turned that game off right after the top of the 1st.
Well, see, every team's got to have a pitcher.
Yeah, so when you have these guys in the 4th and 5th spots in rotation who stink most of the time.
No, they're 500 pitchers. They win one, they lose one.
Or below that, then you go to this. So I said the Dodgers.
You need guys to put in 200 innings. You need guys like Sonny Gray. You got to have it. And I'm guaranteeing you what the Yankees are going to do come July, come August.
And there's a sequence in the game the other day with Cleveland that might lead to a rule change because they brought in Oliver Perez, who's a left-handed to pitch with runners on 2nd and 3rd. He gets in, they do the wave for the intentional walk, then they pull him. So the rule says now that he has to pitch to 1 batter.
That's 1 batter.
He's not actually throwing a pitch.
It doesn't matter. It's still 1 batter.
They may change that.
They
may change that rule.
No, that's 1 batter.
Yeah,
no reason to change anything.
He's not
fine.
Actually pitching, but he's
nodding. He's nodding in the direction of walking him. That's enough. That's enough.
That's enough, right?
That's enough. That is enough. Yep.
Okay. What other teams are going to this, guys?
The Dodgers did that. I mentioned the Dodgers did that a couple of weeks ago against the Pirates in the 3rd game of a homestand, a Pittsburgh homestand, and they shut them out. With the relievers, they started one of their relievers. He pitched 2 innings. Then they used about 6, 7 pitches to shut them out.
Yeah.
And may I ask, who was it? Was it the pitching coach or the manager that decided to make this?
Probably the manager. He makes the decisions.
I guarantee you it was Friedman, Andrew Friedman, who made that decision.
No, the owner, the general manager there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This was not anything that... Managers don't make decisions anymore, folks.
You're right. It
doesn't happen. The general managers make these decisions. The general managers have a team of 10 to 12 people whose job it is to sit in some little cage and look at numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, we played a game today against Houston. In the 9th inning, one of their batters, in the ninth inning now, it's the top of the ninth, we're ahead 3-2. The first guy swings at a ball that bounces in the dirt, and he gets on first base because it goes through the catcher's legs. All right? So, amazingly enough, the way the defense is set up, it's a right-handed batter. We got the shortstop and third base on the third baseman side, and the second baseman is standing right near the second base bag.
Yeah, shift.
I mean, it's astounding that they know exactly where to play, and that's exactly where the batter hit it on one bounce. He steps on second base, throws to first base for a double play. The next guy grounds out, and we win the game. It was a miracle.
No,
it was an absolute miracle that happened. I think
the
it was
miracle is that batters don't adjust to the shift.
That's true too.
Because Jason Stark, the writer, has been rallying against the uptick and shifting for at least the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, he's wrong about that. He's absolutely wrong about that. Players can play anywhere they want.
I know.
But if you've got the entire left side open, put the ball, hit a roller ground ball to the left side. It's not impossible to do. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
You get 4 singles in a row, and the next night you get 4 singles in a row. They're going to start coming over again, and then you open up the field a little bit.
But they count on it. That a lot of these guys, it's either 4 things happen. Either walk, strike out, hit a home run, or hit a lazy fly ball to the outfield.
And those are the bad teams.
Yeah. Did you look at Baltimore? I looked at Baltimore's averages. Baltimore's horrible. They won today, but they're still horrible. They have 4 guys hitting that they played almost every day, hitting under 200.
But
between Chris Davis is having a season for the ages.
Chris Davis is hitting 150, but Chris Davis
they benched him for about a week, and now they're playing him again.
He's 34 years old.
Yeah.
Look at the Baltimore Orioles and see how many of those guys are 33, 34, 35 years old.
Yeah, and they owe him $100 million for the next 5 years.
You can't play 33 and 34 and 35-year-old guys anymore. You can't do it. They don't perform. You got to bring up young kids. You got to.
I know that.
You don't have young kids. Look at the Mets. The Mets are screwed. The Mets don't know what to do. They've got all these guys who are 34, 35, 36 years old. They get hurt. They're on the DL. What they've got what they're left with right now are 2-star pitchers.
Now, Cespedes seems to, every time they say Cespedes is ready to come off, there's always something new.
Cespedes is done. They're paying Cespedes $28 million a year. The guy's done. He's too old. He can't play anymore.
Too injured. Actually, he's got these hamstring problems.
Look, they're still carrying David Wright, who can't play at all.
Yeah, but that's not. Insurance is paying for him.
I have spinal stenosis.
Look.
A friend of mine has spinal stenosis, and you cannot play Major League Baseball. You can't play organized baseball at any level with that.
You've got to understand that the game has changed. This game has changed. It used to be that Nolan Ryan threw 94 miles an hour, and he was a legend because he threw 94 miles an hour. I'll tell you, Vidal Nuno, who you've never heard of.
I heard of him. He was terrible with the Yankees. He was brutal with the Yankees.
He's brutal with the Rays.
I know,
Tremendous. And you've never heard of him, or Chaz Rowe, or Ryan Stanek.
Now, those guys I never heard of. Vidal Nuno I've heard of.
Yeah.
I was amazed when they signed him.
Stanek threw 101 miles an hour. 101.
What does it matter if you don't know where it's going?
Right.
And there's no location.
Well, he's better than that. His ERA is close to 2. Most of these guys are under 2. We have a guy you've never heard of, Diego Castillo, whose ERA is, I think, 1.93.
Him I never heard of, you're right.
Yeah, Diego Castillo throws the ball 100 miles an hour, 95 to 100. This guy comes in for an inning or 2 and shuts you down. I mean, I am so excited about what this Rays team is doing right now, I can barely stand it. And I thought in the first 2 weeks of the season that we were going to lose 120 games.
Well,
it's amazing.
I have a prediction that some batting coach and some team will do precisely what I'm talking about, give into the shift, change things radically, and things will shift back to the way.
Well, there's a number of veterans who saying, I'm getting paid $10 million a year. It doesn't matter whether I hit 300 or 200. I'm still getting paid.
There are not that many of them. I'm telling you,
but
baseball players have pride.
Yeah, Pirates have a couple of them, those types.
Maybe, but nobody wants to go up to the plate and look at the scoreboard and it says that you're hitting 215. Nobody wants that. I play in a softball.
41 players would love that. There are 41 players. Half the season is gone. 41 regulars hitting under 200.
And I want you to find out how old those players are. Make a list and see how old those players are. Bet you most of them are 32, 33, 34, 35. I'll bet you anything.
Well, somebody put up this Joey Gallo on Texas.
I don't know what happened to him. I don't know.
Joey Gallo on Texas is grounded into 3 double plays.
Yep.
So I said, the guy is hitting 180. He's struck out at least 115 times already.
Yep.
Never walked. And he's like, I thought when they started striking out, when Rob Deere started striking out at this kind of rate, I thought he was a pioneer. He was an exception. He's turned out to be a pioneer.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
and these types, they either walk, strike out, hit a home run, or a fly ball. They very rarely hit grounders.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Rays at the end of last season got rid of 4 of their 9 hitters who were the leaders in strikeouts. Morrison, who is now the first baseman for Minnesota. Our fabulous right fielder who we loved. He was such a character. And I can't think of his name right now. It's driving me crazy. Anyhow, we got rid of him, which really made everybody furious because we really liked this guy. And we got rid of 2 other veterans as well who struck out and struck out and struck out and struck out.
Was Longoria one of them?
Longoria was the 4th. Yes, Longoria was definitely one of them. And we ended up bringing in people who were less likely to strike out, including Matt Duffy, who was our third baseman now, who certainly should be an all-star and may be. He's our third baseman. This kid, Daniel Robertson, who you've never heard of. C.J. Crone was our first baseman, and he had a wonderful April and May. He's sort of fallen off recently.
He was with the Angels earlier.
He was with the Angels.
Yeah.
He was with the Angels. He's now with us. And Bowers has taken over at first, and that sort of, I think, probably killed Crone's spirit, if you ask me. We got Carlos Gomez, who, unfortunately, Carlos now is hitting 180. But Carlos is 33, 34 years old, and that's why. We've got this kid, Malik Smith. I call him Malox. Anyhow, he's fast as lightning. He can play left and center field. He hit a home run today against Houston in the 8th inning to give the Rays a 3-1 score. When Gaddis hit his second home run today to make it 3-2, it turned out that Malox Smith's home run was the game winner. And we ended up winning 3-2.
It was amazing. This 19-year-old kid out of Washington, Soto.
Yes, 19-year-old kid Soto, exactly.
And a couple of Washington, the people at the conference who were from that area, told me they're going to let Bryce Harper walk. They have to pay him what he's looking for.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me.
But they said they have another kid in AAA who's just as good as Soto. And if Harper leaves, they'll clear a space for this kid.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it would not surprise me to see, Bryce Harper somehow end up with either the Red Sox or the Yankees. Would not surprise me at all. Because that's who the Red Sox
and the Mets are going to break it up with Syndergaard and DeGrom?
Well, they've got to keep. It seems to me they've got to keep Syndergaard and DeGrom because that's the heart of their team.
Well, Syndergaard's always hurt.
Well, when he's not
he
hurt,
missed most of last season. He's missed a good portion of this season.
Yeah. Well, I think the Mets. I don't know what happened to the Mets. I think injuries more than anything else has really hurt them badly. But they've always had this philosophy of taking on 32, 33, 34, 35-year-olds. And that doesn't work anymore. They found that out this year. It doesn't work anymore. The Mets are one of the worst teams in baseball right now.
If you stop building a farm system, and this used to be the mantra, like when the Yankees in the 60s, when Topping and Webb decided to sell the team,
Right.
they stopped spending money on the farm. That's one of the reasons the Yankees in the mid-60s went into the sewer.
Correct.
But so the Mets basically, for one reason or another, I don't know if the Wilpons got so taken in by Madoff,
Yeah.
and they refused to sell, that they stopped spending money on player development. And you do that, you're consigning yourself to the bottom for years.
Yep. Well, that's exactly right. I've got two very close friends who are Mets fans who are just, they're howling at the moon. They don't know what to do.
You will listen to the
I'm that way.
fan that call in the radio station here for half an hour with Met fans.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine.
Okay, well, we're talking about needing young players, and the Mets having no young players. They may be forced to break up Syndergaard and DeGrom.
Maybe, but then who are you going to pitch? You got to pitch somebody.
Well,
unless they get 4 pitchers
stage of rebuilding. Very few teams rebuild from scratch anymore. They rebuild on the fly, and I think the Mets are going to have to just start again.
The ownership has to be willing, and so far the Wilpons have not shown
their general manager, Alderson, stepped down. He's got cancer again, which is terrible. I've known him. He and I went to college together. He's a lovely, lovely man.
Yeah, 3 years ago, the Mets and the Royals were in the World Series, and the Royals have something like 23, 24 wins at this point. I asked a friend of mine at the convention who's from Kansas City, who's been a season ticket holder for a number of years. I said, how is it this year? He said, very tough.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
See, what I don't understand, here's what I don't understand, which absolutely drives me crazy. The Chicago White Sox had Chris Sale, and they dealt him. The Detroit Tigers not only had Scherzer, but they had Verlander. They had both those guys.
Was Scherzer play out his option?
Yeah, I understand that.
And he was unwilling to sign with the Tigers for whatever reason.
Gee whiz. I mean,
they offered him a big deal the year before his in March or February or March before his walk year. He had a big year with them, and they went to Washington as a free agent. Verlander was something else.
Wow. I mean, that's really something. That is really, and that's why when you say Syndergaard and DeGrom, should the Mets trade him? I mean, maybe they will. I mean, Detroit let those.
A couple of years ago, the Yankees sent Chapman 2 years ago in 2016 to the Cubs as a rental. Okay, and they got Torres as part of that deal.
Well, they
then they signed Chapman back as a free agent.
Torres right now has 15 home runs. He's got 50 RBIs. He's played a month.
The two kids have basically been he and Andujar have basically been carrying the team for the last month.
That's who performs.
Yeah.
22, 23, 24-year-olds. That's who performs.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
I know.
Well, Greg Bird is starting to come around, and that's going to really.
I think he hurt himself, and I don't think he'll ever be what he should have been.
Well, he had 2 home runs the other day, and then they benched him yesterday for Drury, who they just brought up. They signed for a contract before the season because they didn't think both kids would make it.
Yeah.
So Drury is excess, and they put him at first base yesterday.
Yep.
They got 1 hit yesterday.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Rays have
trade bait, and I think the Yankees and Mets may do business with each other.
Never.
No, that's a pipe dream.
That's
a pipe dream.
Not ever. That will not.
A lot of talk must be just talk. In a way, I hope so, because
it's like listening to the next month. Every report on where LeBron James is going.
You know where LeBron James is going? He's going to Los Angeles. That's where he's going.
Well, yeah. But they're making such a stink out of this. I mean, you can't turn it around.
Well, who's making the stink? The
ESPN, because ESPN is totally in bed with the NBA since they can't do it with NFL and they can't do it with baseball.
Yeah, well. I mean, it's very strange to see what happened with Golden State, to have that one great player go and join the other 3 great players to make.
No, he's staying. Durant said he's staying there.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Why would you not? You win yourself.
Why would he not? You go.
Yeah.
And the Knicks, of course, have no cap space.
The Knicks are a joke. I mean, the Knicks
I know.
are an absolute joke. I was fortunate when I was in law school. I got to spend a lot of time with the 1970 and 1973 Knicks.
Those things were beautiful to watch.
Jackson was a close friend of mine, so I spent a lot of time at Madison Square Garden watching those wonderful teams. You know, that's the last time, 1973, the Knicks have been in the finals for the NBA.
No, they made it twice.
Into the finals?
They made it in 1994 when they lost to Houston when John Starks went 2 for 17 in the last game, and I'm screaming at him every time. I'm screaming at O'Reilly for not taking him out. I'm screaming every time he launches a clanger. And they made the finals in 1998, and they lost to San Antonio.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
They haven't won the championships, and they're not the worst. The two worst are the Hawks, who haven't won since 1958, and the Sacramento Kings, who 3 iterations ago was the Rochester Royals, last won in 1951. They haven't been back to the finals since.
All right. Rochester Royals. Bring back the Rochester Royals.
Red Holtzman was the third guy on that team.
Martin and bring back Slater Martin for the Hawks.
Bring back Slater Martin.
Red Holtzman was the third guy on that team. That's how long ago this was.
Red Holtzman. With that, folks, have a great week.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. This was fun.
Always is.
And Peter, congratulations on the Rays.
Thank you.
At least you have something, a reason to go there. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we're now 1 game over 500, and I never thought we'd ever make that, ever. And,
so at least you have a reason to go there.
We play Detroit 3 games, and you know, if they can continue to play the way they've been playing, who knows how far this team can go.
Watch out, the Mets, the White Sox, the Orioles, and the Tigers all won today.
Oh, all right.
I think because the teams that went on Saturday.
Where is Arroyo, the third baseman they got from?
Oh, my boy Arroyo. He injured himself. He got injured, so I'm waiting for him to come back. I paid $19 for poor Arroyo in about 3 weeks ago, and I wanted him so badly, and he's barely played at all. But he'll be back soon. He will.
Good.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you again, both of you. My pleasure.
Okay.
Golenbock University, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Al Blumpkin, superstar of Sabre. Not easy to say for an old guy. And the Professor Peter Golenbock. Thanks, gentlemen. Be well, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Good night.
We'll be back before you know it. Adios.